Good morning. Great programme, thank you.
Thank you, and I see you've got Betty there, your cat,
Absolutely.
with you.
She's the brains.
Well, I would expect nothing less. I mean, Justin, we spoke last week. The Labour government is saying everything's going to plan here. They didn't raise tax on national insurance or VAT, but they clobbered companies with this employer's national insurance. The figures here are eye-watering, whichever way you look at it. And in many ways, this has been incredibly duplicitous because the government is reiterating this line that ordinary working people aren't going to see any increase in tax, but what they will see is an increase in prices. We're going to see people being laid off. You've got bosses of major companies like for example, Tim Martin at Wetherspoon saying the price of a pint is going to go up.
Yep. I mean, it's exactly what's going to happen now. You're quite right. What you're not seeing is direct tax going up, but indirect tax going up, and it finds itself in a really difficult position. Remember, there is one word that runs an economy, and it's not a politician, it's called confidence. Now, you've gone on about this before, and you're absolutely right. Have some confidence, particularly when you come into office to start with. Say, yes, I know it's difficult, I know we've got some bad things to try and deal with, but there's an old motto, I think, for the 4th Tank Regiment, which is mud, blood and green fields beyond. Actually say, look, there are green fields, and we can show you where they are, what we're actually good at, and also the government can arrange for more investment. Not more money, because it hasn't got any. What it can do is actually look at the areas where it's been successful. Enterprise investment schemes, which encourage people to set up businesses, and the government only has to pay money if it goes wrong. In the meantime, it's free. Now, actually do that. Now make it regional. Now make it focused on the areas we're really clever at. Technology, which again is not based in London, it's all over the country, all across all 4 nations. And so therefore they've got a scheme which is encouraging, makes people be more positive, encourage investors coming in, and above all, us as consumers. And remember, we're responsible for nearly 2/3 of the economy. And if you and I are feeling rather fed up, we're not going to go out as much. Yeah. We're not going to eat as much. If you're an investor, same thing will occur. If you're an international investor, you'll sit there and say, what's this group of islands doing? Halfway thinks itself, it's not in the European Union, but it's not in America. Now is the time for some dynamism. Now, you mentioned this before, and I think it's a really interesting point. Why not some dynamism in terms of making yourself very difficult, a serious slash on corporation tax, to actually say to people, right, so for companies under a certain size, as we have done before, there isn't any corporation tax. And then you let it grow from there. So you can actually see then how much companies are participating in growing into the economy and not just merely saying, oh, they're just draining money out of it. They're actually participating.
And Justin, that's the really important point here, is if you incentivise those SMEs, those very small companies, they can take the employer's NI hit because they know they're not paying corporation tax. And so actually I agree totally. I think that's a brilliant way to kickstart the economy. And also, you have to say to people, there is a reason to put all your money on black, to actually use your own money to start a business. And right now, I wouldn't start a business.
No, I mean, we've all had to go through this process if you've been an entrepreneur, and it's very worrying and frightening, and you need some encouragement, not necessarily always financial, but encouragement to think, actually, the economy is going to be all right. Now, we've found ourselves in this position. Are we going to nuzzle up against the EU, which, of course, we left? And, on the other hand, it's the world's largest free market, free tax-free area. But on the other hand, it's supremely inefficient. Or do we do a deal with America? Well, actually, at the moment, don't play your cards on this one. Actually come up with something which is dynamic, which shows Britain, the best of Britain, saying we can do things differently here, which will attract more money into this country and encourage business and encourage investments. And therefore, it's not about us pleading for free trade deals with America or the EU, but actually them coming to us saying, actually, we'd rather like you to be involved in this because you can do things that we can't. And that, high-tech areas we're good at. Financial services areas we're good at. That's certainly very possible. So 2 key areas where we know we're winners already. Encourage them. Don't depress them.
And already we're seeing high net worth individuals saying, right, I've had enough of this. I'm going to leave the UK. You're also seeing other people who are mobile, who are economically mobile, saying, I'm also leaving this country. Just underpinning all of this, of course, there's also this big story about Rachel Reeves coming under heavy fire because, I'll be careful what I say, but allegedly lying on her CV about her work as an economist. On her LinkedIn CV, it said, I was an economist, Bank of Scotland full-time. It's now been changed to, I was in retail banking. I mean, they're very different. Does Rachel Reeves know what she's doing? And maybe you can't answer that, but from an economist point of view, it seems to me that it's all stick and no carrot.
Well, there's very little encouragement there to actually sit there and say this is a person with great experience. But I have to say, when you look at the entire across the cabinet, how many people involved actually in business, actually running business, have actually put their own home, their house, their money on the line? Sometimes their family even, to be able to go and do that. I can't see anybody there who's the firebrand to change. Now, I don't want to see revolution in the streets, but I'd love to see some proper financial revolution, which are people who sit there and say, actually, we can grow this and grow this now, and we can see benefits from it within a few months. Because if you start getting growth, not at 0.1, which is basically what naught, but actually it's growing up towards 1 and 2%, that will make a great difference to people in terms of saying, actually, we're making progress to do better than the EU, and we're not say we're doing better than the US, different economy altogether, but we seem to be having an initiative, having enthusiasm, and people want to come to us.
Yeah.
Don't go to them with our begging book.
Just in terms of the economy, I mean, Rachel Reeves has spent a lot of time talking down the economy. We talked about confidence there, but also our growth. The reason the growth is so low is because companies have been terrified to do anything because they didn't know what was coming down the line.
Yeah, and you have to give people the idea that, yes, it's going to be there may be some support at some stage, but give them an idea of actually when they're growing the business, what they can actually get out of it, not just the people who own it, but also the people participating in it, and show people actually how much you are contributing to the economy. Because the average company doesn't really know. Maybe it pays corporation tax, but it's paying an awful lot of national insurance, it's paying a lot of other taxes going in. So companies are more than just people and then products and the tax being paid on their profits. It's actually part of a community, you're part of a region, and you need more of that to be developed, especially around the country where we know we've got some hotspots. We can look at it primarily around those technology hotspots, those silly nicknames of Silicon Glen, Silicon Fen, Silicon Gorge. It's all sound like a silicon implant, but I probably shouldn't talk about that. But the whole point is, actually, we know we've got businesses. When they grow, sadly what happens is some dear fellow comes across from California and says, great idea, by the way, would you like to come to California with me? And we lose it. So there's a simple thing for us to try and adjust straight away. One of the good ideas I did like was a reform in regard to pensions. I'm not too sure she totally understands actually what she's done. But one of the areas I've looked at over the past few years is how much local authority pension money goes into local businesses or goes into businesses which affects their area. And most of it is, well, I don't know. We give it to an investment company in London. They invest it on a global portfolio around the world. Actually, what it should be doing is, I want to see some of my pension money, not all of it, investing in long-term assets in my region. And if we can do that on a big enough scale, lo and behold, you'll get other people joining in. And she's quite right. These mega funds coming from pension funds from Canada and Australia, you get greater economies of scale, so the costs are lower. They can take a long-term view because they don't want short-term double your money. They want long-term investments for pensioners so that they know over a period of 40, 50 years, they will see a rising period of dividends. Can we do that? Yes. We've got several...
So is that one thing they've got right then?
That is one thing they've got right. I'm not too sure they've got the detail of it, because having said it, now actually let's put some meat on that and say, show us some dynamism, which will really then show, actually, I'm feeling now better. It may be grey outside, but actually there'll be some sunshine soon, and that's where it's going to come from.
I think many people also, if we can just move on to interest rates and mortgages, many people coming to the end of a fixed rate deal will be very worried about what is going on here, because the current interest rate was dropped to 4.75%. We thought the interest rates are going to come down repeatedly, but after the budget, there's now talk that they'll go up again. You've got Andrew Bailey saying they will come down, but not to the extent that we first thought. Equally, we've now got this problem where we're now starting to see mortgage costs rising. Why are the mortgage costs rising if interest rates are coming down?
Because you've got different types of mortgages. What you're seeing there, particularly is the short-term fixed mortgages, they come to an end, and so the companies will go to the market, say, how can they fund this? And that short-term funding market has actually gone up in price. Why? Because they've been concerned over the past few months as to where the British economy is going. So I trust in Britain, it's not going to go bust, they've always paid their debts. But actually, am I going to get good enough returns? Well, in order to encourage me, you're going to have to pay me more. That's what we've been seeing happening. If you can therefore then attract actually more people into the long-term investment market, that'll then be cheaper overall, and you'll see then those rates start to come down. Now, Bailey should have actually been cutting rates, as you said before, much, much earlier, because what's happened was we were on emergency rates to the banking crisis, which was actually quite a long time ago. So when people are on their fixed rate mortgages of maybe 1%, 0.5%, and they find then to remortgage, it's not double, it's more treble, it's horrendous. And so that's unnecessarily caused real pain for people. And of course, inflation didn't come from people wanting more money this time round, or you can see what impacts in the past year. But prior to that, it was because of the global economy in terms of actual products, costs of goods and delivery of them. It was external inflation. And therefore, the Bank of England putting up interest rates up or down is irrelevant. Bank of England has only got one tool. It's got a hammer. And if you own a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So actually, by just mucking around with interest rates, it doesn't affect inflation that directly. No, what you have to do, get actually the money out of people's pockets. Remember, there is no shortage of money in this country. But at the moment, we're not using it properly. Someone changed the financial plumbing. So there could be local investment into local businesses. I'm not saying go back to having 45 local stock exchanges with silly gits and red braces. What you can do, though, is create regional investment funds which people can invest in, and not run by the government, certainly not run by local authorities, but actually run by people who are actually running those actually proper investment managers in competition with each other to provide returns to people. So you've got the businesses to invest in, you've got the money, change the plumbing, and you've already made a dynamic change. And you go back to that word again, confidence.
And just very quickly, if I may, just in terms of the businesses, before the election, we had all these big businesses cozying up to Labour giving mood music to the companies. Oh, we're going to have massive economic growth. Well, now they're all turning around and saying, actually, we were wrong. You've got the chairman of JD Sports saying the Labour tax rises are too much to bear. You've got the chairwoman of Tortilla also, who backed Labour before the election, now saying this is abhorrent. You've got Tim Martin from Wetherspoons, who was politically neutral, who said, actually, we can't cope with what is going on. Is there buyer's remorse here?
No, certainly, because what they were being promised is nothing what's been delivered. When you sit there and say, we're actually going to give you a budget which is not going to impact you on the tax directly, that's not true. So therefore, they can change that attitude really quite quickly by bringing things in which are encouraging for businesses. And that has been fat cats. That actually people, remember, most of the businesses, most people are employed by small businesses. That's where the growth actually comes from. So nice to have big companies here as well. But where's the next generation of big companies? They start from small companies. So encourage that growth. Have that nursery, help to get more money in, put that financial plumbing. And by the way, it doesn't cost the government anything. Give people incentives to invest, so the government only has to prop up if the business goes wrong. If it succeeds, they get money back and a lot more. And so therefore, it's not a money tree, it's just better use of what we've already got. And that's my concern. I'm not too sure people understand actually which lever to pull next.